Good morning. I'm your host, Fred Ellis, on your pottery adventure. This is Something Southern Pottery. We want to welcome you and hope that you have an enjoyable experience with your pottery. There's Jalen busy at her wheel making pots. Here's Laura, she's sitting in her area decorating the pots. So we want to make sure that all these bats have water on them and in them. These are plaster bats. I know a lot of potters who absolutely get crazy over plaster. They don't want it in their studio. I learned to throw from a potter. One of my teachers that I took a course was a fellow named Stephen Jepson. Stephen invented these plaster bats. Had a couple of folks who made them constantly. He sold them on, he used to have the reason I got to know him was I took a course from him. I found him in a pottery magazine called Ceramics Monthly. He used to have an advertisement in there. And I looked at he and a fella named Robin Harper. And Robin, as far as I know, is still has classes, or I don't know. That's been some years ago. But in 1998, I went down to Florida. I thought, well, Florida's closer than Canada, which is where Robin Harper was, so I thought I'd go closer where I might know something. So I studied just for a couple of weeks, but I took 2 weeks training with Stephen Jepson, who was an absolutely marvelous potter. He had studied at a place called Alfred University, which is part of the University of New York City College or City College of New York, whatever. But he had studied there, which is one of the premier pottery colleges and universities in the country. And I learned quite a bit from Stephen. And like I say, he was an excellent potter, very enthusiastic, and he had a system. And I had already had some classes, and I was kind of a guest at having around this stuff too. And I'm going, I don't think I'll ever be able to throw on this. Well, as you can see, I've got over 100 bats that I bought from him, different sizes over the years. We stayed friends, and I would go down and see him about once a year, pick up 5 or 6 more bats or 10 and see how he was doing. As far as I know, he's no longer doing pottery, but he invented this system, and I bought into it, and I like it because, as you can see, I can move these bats around. I can even move them around with pottery on them. So I can move this pot and I can take it to different places and do different things with it. I can alter that pot. I can leave it. I leave the pots on the bat until they're about dry. I work in series. I am not a production potter, but what I'm going to show you all the way through from beginning to end is how I make the pot. I'm not going to tell you for a minute that it's the right way or the best way. it's just Fred's way. It's what I've developed between the different people that I've studied under. My first instructor was the high school art instructor at a place called Baylor School, which is a private school in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Laura and I used to go to a lot of art and craft shows. We loved art. I especially loved anybody doing work with their hands. Laura could park me in front of a potter or a blacksmith or a glass blower or whatever, come back and get me when she was finished shopping, and I just loved watching it. So I came in from work one day. I'd been off on a detail for about a week, somewhere down in middle or south Georgia. And Laura says, look over on the refrigerator. So I looked on the refrigerator, and there's a half-page ad out of the Chattanooga Times. Said pottery classes, 3 hours a night, 3 nights a week for 3 weeks, X number of dollars. My response was, yeah, looks like fun. Laura's response was, yeah, you start Monday. So that was the beginning of my pottery journey, and this was in 1994. And here we are, 30 years later. I think that's right, yeah. 30 years later, 31, this is 2025. So we're still making pots. We do shows. We sell some on the internet. We're going to expand that. We're changing. I'm getting older. Setting up for a craft show is hard work. It looks easy when you look down the line of tents and you see all this beautiful art, whether it's 2D, 3D, it's absolutely gorgeous. But it took a lot of work for each one of those vendors to get there. I don't care what he's doing, it took work. He had to sweat to just put his tent and get his wares there to sell. I like fairs. They're a lot of fun. You meet a lot of interesting people, the people that you work with, right from the promoter who puts the show on to the artist next door to you, who you learn a lot about their craft, you learn some about them, and then the people that come through, and being able to engage them. If y'all don't know, by watching this video, you're gonna learn I'm a talker. I yap all the time, so I'll talk to anybody that walks through the door. We're gonna have a conversation. Back to what I said a while ago before I went down the other rabbit hole, I throw in a series. It's usually in 12s. It's an easy number to keep up with. It's divisible by a lot, so that's what I do. I have room for, this is not a huge studio, but I built this studio specifically for this purpose over 20 years ago, and it has served us well, and we're still at it. We make pots, we sell pots. I've got an apprentice now who works in the studio with us a couple of days a week. She takes, you met her, Jalen takes a lot of the work off me anymore. She does a lot of the throwing. I'll describe and show her a particular pot of mine, and over a short period of time, she's an excellent thrower. Not what she studied and went to college for, but it's what she fell in love with. So remember that. Art is something you fall in love with. And if you can figure out a way to make a living at it, you won't ever work a day in your life. Back to this. We're going to be making apple onion bakers. It's one of my top sellers. I didn't invent them. I just do my own system on how to make them. I buy my clay, and it's called a clay body because it's a mixture of clays that do certain things, but it is not clay that you just go out here and pick up off the ground. Clay's the most abundant element on earth. It is the earth. It's what we get when the earth does its thing and produces mountains, and mountains get worn down and into small particles, and it drifts down the mountain and down the rivers, and we mine it and pick it up and use different parts of it to do different things, and we mix it together to form a clay body. The body I'm using right now is a very white clay. It isn't porcelain, but it's very close to it. It's called B-Mix. And I think it's made by Laguna. I think that's who makes this particular one. I make sure that it's mostly in a ball. And I use this technique to make the bottom smooth and convex. No air pockets. Can't get any air pockets on my bat, which would cause problems as the pot's being made. These are 1 pound balls, and the process that you have to do, the first thing you have to do is what potters call centering. And that's getting the clay in the middle of the wheel. The second part of the process is opening the ball. Making this particular pot, I don't just open it part way. I go all the way down to the very bottom of what we call the wheel head, which is this bat. I open all the way there, get it to where I want it, then I begin to open the rest of the pot. As you can see, and I hope the camera will pick up part of it, that we're opened all the way down to the bat on this. And then I get a separate portion of the pot and I begin to raise it. And I'm going to make me a stem, and I'm gonna make it a closed form, so I'm gonna slowly close this up. This stem does a couple of things. It helps hold either the apple or the onion in place, and it also provides heat to cook the inside of it. Now, I begin to raise the wall, so I'm gonna form a bowl on the outside here. Smoothing out the bottom. There's a reason for that. Think about it. Everything in a pot, if you design it correctly, especially if you're making functional pottery like I do, it has a function. I want that inside curve as smooth as possible, because if you put a fork or a spoon, you put a utensil against it, you don't want it to bump going down. You want it to be nice smooth as you eat whatever you're eating out of your bowl. Well, you're going to be eating, hopefully, an apple or an onion out of here. Basically, for the first phase of this, which is the throwing, this pot's done for right now. Dip the water out of there. You don't want to leave water accumulating in the bottom. Remember, this is just clay, and it stays right now. If you leave water in it, it'll melt. And we're ready to start this process on. Now, when we talk about centering, remember, think about it. If you're new to pottery, you don't have to center the whole ball of clay. All you're doing is centering the outside portion of it where it's all the same. So, all you do is put your hands in there, grip it a little bit, and when your hands stop shaking, you've centered the ball. You don't have to. I then flatten it out. I remember one potter I knew was talking about how they instructed, I believe she might have been an instructor at a school, called that a tuna can. I don't know. Looks like it might, it's a star-kissed tuna. Okay, remember, open all the way to the bottom. You want to clear that out a little. Make sure you're there. You don't want to leave any clay. Then you want to open the rest of the pot a little. Got your finger inside and a finger outside, and you raise that wall a little bit. And you want to bring it together. Remember, you're closing this form. You are in fact trapping air in it. You don't want to leave it that way, and I'll show you that when we go to the next step. Smooth that out. You've now got your center. Come back, smooth that. Open the pot a little bit. You want room to get a nice fat onion in there, a good Vidalia. Actually, Vidalias are too sweet to cook. They lose their flavor. Being from the South, which I am, I'm a Southern boy, born and raised here. And then raise the outer wall. You want to be sure that your outer wall is taller than your inner wall in that stem. And your pot is wide enough to take a very large onion, because the more onion you got, the better off they are. Slow the wheel head down a little bit. That's to get whatever forming you want to do to get your final form. Roll that edge out just a little bit. Make sure your inside is nice and smooth. Remember, if you're making these, you don't want to leave any ridges in it or anything that your spoon or fork or whatever utensil you've got will bang on it, will bump on it, catch on it. Won't be good. So that's 2 out of a dozen that we'll make. And we'll get back to you for the next stage later. These pots have set for 24 hours, partially under plastic, to get them to what next stage is called the leather hard stage. Now we want to take them off the bat. Since I don't cut my pots off at the time that I make them, and I use the bat system, we trim these out a little bit, and I will put them all on a wear board. At every stage, we're kind of cleaning up, quality control, looking at what we're doing. Here's about the last time I'll touch the rim of the pot. And as you can see, I use a sharp stick to begin to take my pots off the bat. And I use a fettling knife is all I use. I just form an edge, go under it. And when you see the pot move, it's ready to remove. I'll set them aside, let them dry just a little bit more. They're still a little too hard for trimming. But my pot is now off the bat. And I'll be ready to go on to the next phase. There again, just trimming it, just smoothing the edge a little bit, making sure that rough spots and lines are out of it. I use a wooden tool. The same fellow that designed this bat system also designed tools. His wooden tools were very well made, really nice, hardwood, and cost quite a bit. So I figured I'll make some of my own. So I did, and I got a 1/2-inch dowel that you buy at Lowe's or any hardware store. And I just cut and put a point on it. I use a squared off point, very easy to fix. And I don't damage too much. Again, I say too much. These are plaster, they're soft. As you can see, there's some concave areas in it. Hopefully one of these days I'll fix them. But that's caused from the tools going against it. So over time, you will damage the bats. So I just go all the way down to the bat, establish an edge, and trim the clay off. Get some of the clay off. Square up an area here, get a little more clay. Before we were shaping clay with our hands while it was soft. Now all we're doing is removing some clay to give us the final shape that we want. Each process, each step you go through has a particular reason. See how that moved just a little bit? The moment it did, you know you've separated it from the bat. Clean your bat up, get the clay off of it, set it aside. You're ready to go on to the next one. This one's pretty good. Same thing. Establish a rim. Depends on how much clay you have left. Take a little bit of clay off. These are a little soft. They're not quite leather hard, which is what I'm really looking for. You can really tell the difference. These are a little sticky. You see, they come off and they stick to your pot a little bit. You can, once you get to trimming, if you touch a tool to it, and it makes a nice ribbon that falls away from the pot, that's exactly the right wetness you want. If it breaks up and begins to crumble, you've let it get a little bit too dry. I can get these off well enough. You see how easily they pop off the bat. We'll remove these other parts, clean them up as we go into trimming. I sometimes use a rib if I have a little bit of clay on it, a little rubber rib to clean up the pot. Sponge and water, clay's all gone. That's ready to reuse. All right, now we start the next phase in the process. These have reached a good leather hard. They shouldn't stick. I will show you how to trim them and tell you why we do it make them like they are. I'm going to start by opening this one up a little. There's that center from the other side that I left you where it goes, where I told you it goes all the way down to the bat. So now we just kind of trim that out. And on this particular pot, I leave a foot rim. So what I'm doing is I'm refining my bowl shape on here. Also, I set the base here kind of at an angle, and there's a reason for that. This is a pot that's used in the kitchen, and people will, it's designed, granted, most people these days use dishwashers, but if you happen to be one of those folks who still washes things in the sink, I cut this at a little angle so you can get a good grip on it with nice, wet, sudsy hands. So now that I've set that, I've basically refined this angle. I'll show it to you after I get it done, so you can see what I'm talking about as the angle. I use this particular trimming tool. You can use any trimming tool you like to do it. I happen to like this one. Like I said, I am not going to tell you that something is better than something else. that my way is better than anybody else's. I do it because it suits me. And sometimes that's just how I learned to do it. And sometimes I took somebody else's idea and refined it, and that's what I like to do. Now, if you'll notice, I'm getting all these little crumblies as such off my pots. After it dries, I'll also do that again to make sure. I want to smooth these edges up, so I use my better tools, my fingers, to do that. Set the angle on this. There again, there's no set anything. I just look at it, and when I get it to the point that I like it, I'm good with it. I'll have to wait and get that out after it dries. Now then, take it off here. As you can see, the angle here, this mimics the inside somewhat. Doesn't have to match it exactly, but I leave this indentation here, and I'll show you on the next one, and you'll understand why I leave it like this. See, this is how it looks when we take it off the bats. This is how it looks after it's trimmed. I also use my chalk there again to mark this with. I only use one on it since it is something southern, and it's a product that we make over and over and over again. We make these in the year's time by the thousand. All right, we'll do another one. Get this. If you notice, I don't sit around. I bought this tool to center with. It's called a Giffin grip. I used to center these on the wheel and tap on center and put wads of clay in it, either one of which or a combination of both is just fine. I didn't like wasting that much time, so I bought this, and it has more than paid for itself over time by allowing me to quickly have my pot centered, not having to mess with it at all. You'll notice I'm kind of cleaning my tool off here. And the reason for that is it doesn't take long once you get a real thin piece of clay to dry and get a little hard. You see, that's already hard. What it will do is it will then leave a mark on the clay. And you don't want that. like I said, on these pots, I set a foot ring on them. And there's no set. You decide what you want to trim it to, and when you get it to where you want it to be, and you think it's good and fits what you want your pot to look like, as you can see, I now have a foot ring on it. I have a base, and if I want to check it, I do it like this. And I'll lay a little ruler across here, and if you look, you can see light all the way under it. And when you can, this is lower than the rim, so when you set your pot on the kitchen table, you have it off the hook. Now, the reason I trimmed this out and the reason I made this way is so I can now, when I go to stack this in the cabinet, I have room. I can stack them 3 or 4 deep in your cabinet. There's room. So I designed it and make it this way. Other people make theirs differently. It's the way I make mine, and it's the reason I do it. So let me just mark the, oh, oops. As you can see, they're still soft enough to fix a little. Pop that around, set up. And down in there, it's clay. It's malleable. You can do a lot with it. Let's see, I didn't mark that one yet. Let me ID who made this one and what Pottery made it. All right. And that's what we'll do with all of those. Be sure and like us if you like the video. Be sure and hit the like button. And also we'll post below our links to our social media. So just click on the links in the description below and follow them. And this is Fred Ellis with Something Southern Pottery for the people that have helped us in this and the people in the studio. Thank you and good day.